will be saying a few words. And as you heard, we are recording this event so that those who can't join us tonight will be able to see this later. Before we get started, I would just encourage everyone to turn on your cameras and to feel free to communicate via chat if you have any suggestions or thoughts or comments that you want to make in real time. So we're keeping the chat open, and we really encourage people to jump in. So if you want to jump in and say hi in chat, we would love to hear from you. And I'm just going to be admitting people as we speak here. Aaron, can you turn to the next slide, please? Before we get started, I'd like to begin with a land recognition. When we're talking about Queen Elizabeth Driveway, we are talking ultimately about land. And we understand that the National Capital Region and the Queen Elizabeth Driveway are located on unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Host Nation. The people of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Host Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. We are grateful to have the opportunity to be present in this territory. Next slide, please, Aaron. As we mentioned tonight, we're going to begin with 4 speakers. We have Derek from the Centertown Community Association. We have Deanne Vallée from the City of Montreal. We have Bruce Devine from the National Capital Commission. And then we have my colleague, Aaron Marr from Parkways for People. We want to spend a lot of time on community discussion tonight. So hear from all of you about what your thoughts are, what you think the potential is, some of the events that maybe you might be interested in being a part of helping to organize yourselves. So that's the agenda for tonight. We will encourage Deanne and Bruce to give as fulsome presentations as they would like, because there's a lot of new information coming from them that I think we all want to hear. Aaron, if you can move to the next slide, please. So Derek, what I'd like to do is turn it over to you now. And for those that I'm sure many of you know Derek. Derek, of course, is the chair of the Transportation Committee of the Centertown Community Association. And some of you will know Derek as the lead of the Urbanist Book Club in Ottawa. And some of you will know Derek as just an all-around community organizer and a champion of a better Ottawa. So Derek, over to you.
All right, thanks for having me, Neil. Really happy to be here. I'm going to start us off with what might sound like a bold statement, but based on what I've heard in the community isn't. There is community support for a more people-focused Queen Elizabeth Drive. My name's Derek Simpson. I'm representing the Transportation Committee of the Centertown Community Association, and I'm here to show support for a better Queen Elizabeth Drive, and I couldn't be happier to see the community here tonight to share their voices. I've heard from a mother who told me that Queen Elizabeth Drive is the safest part of her son's bike ride to school. A dad who says he needs more green space and parks for his growing daughter. And from younger residents across the city who feel forgotten by our car-centric city council. Prioritizing people on Queen Elizabeth Drive is not a progressive pipe dream. Beautifying and optimizing waterfront space is the status quo. You heard me right. Pushing for a people-first Queen Elizabeth Drive is just common sense at this point. Just look at Canadian cities like Montreal, Vancouver, and Halifax. We've all had success putting people first at their waterfronts. It's time Ottawa does the same and transforms Queen Elizabeth Drive into a true destination. So please keep pushing, keep supporting volunteers and groups like Parkways for People, and keep showing up to meetings like these. And of course, join your community association. For our climate, for our tourism and economy, and most importantly, for the citizens of Ottawa, we need to reimagine Queen Elizabeth Drive. Thanks, Neil.
Great. Thank you, Derek. I'd like to turn it over now to Deanne Vallée. And just before I do, for those that are just joining us now, I really encourage you to turn on your cameras. As I mentioned, we're going to have a few introductory talks to set the stage, and then we're going to turn this over to everyone to have a community discussion as to what we see as the potential here. So as I say, please don't hesitate to use the chat room while we're waiting, but we really encourage everyone to participate. And this is an open mic tonight. And so we're really looking forward to hearing what people have to say. But first, I'd like to let Deanne say a few words now. Deanne Vallée is with the City of Montreal and specifically with the Borough of Verdun. And as some of you may know, what magazine was it? Time Out, I got it. Time Out magazine compiled its list of the coolest streets in the world. And Rue Wellington in Verdun came up as the #1 coolest street in the world. Let me repeat that, the #1 coolest street in the world. So part of what has made Wellington Street in Montreal so great is the street animation. And we are really lucky tonight to have with us the program manager in Verdun, who has been responsible for all of that animation, really for taking Wellington Street to the next level. So I'd like to invite Deanne to turn on her screen sharing and tell us how she's made Wellington Street into the coolest street in the world. Over to you, Deanne.
Well, thank you very much, Neil. So it's a pleasure to be with you guys and girls tonight. It's really a great opportunity for me to kind of talk about Montreal, talk about Verdun, and share the pleasure, because you don't become the coolest street alone. There's a lot of people involved, but I'll kind of go through. So I'll be sharing, if that's okay. Yeah, at this point? Very good. So first, you can see Wellington Street. It's a pedestrian street, but it's not the only pedestrian street in Montreal. But as he mentioned, we kind of went outside of the lot. So tonight I'll be entertaining you for about the project in itself, the vision. And it's interesting to hear Derek talking about the shores, because we have this in common, Verdun and Ottawa. We have the St. Lawrence River shores and a nice public park all along the way. Talk about the visitors, the impacts, cultural activities, animation, design, playful landscaping, mobility, and universal access and community involvement. I think it's basically essential for this kind of project. So let's get into it. So our pedestrian street started in 2020 during the pandemic. Okay, there was a concerns about how the bars, the restaurants to get people to access to the street. So, okay. And it continued. It was so popular the first year that it continued. And then the City of Montreal started the program to kind of subsidize the pedestrian streets all over in the city. For us, 2024 is our 5th year. So we've renewed different things, crossings, artistic, painting, more greening, and animation, cultural activities, and citizens projects and design. Basically, Wellington makes 1.3 kilometers long, okay? And we always start the pedestrian early June and it goes till mid-September, okay? You get the, for every year. And there's also the vision, okay? What we did the first year, in 2021, we hired a design firm to kind of make suggestions as far as what kind of design they would recommend, and the vision to inspire. So they came back to us with the boardwalk and the riverbanks, because we have our huge public part, and we know that the citizens love it. They adore it. So we got all the installation, as you can see, les bacs intersection, markings with wave, biodiversity, and colorful. Okay, it's, to have fun and to enjoy when you're going on the Wellington Street. For your information, Verdun is a very dense community. Okay, there are a lot of duplex, triplex, so the people need air, and the Wellington Street with the pedestrian makes it possible for the people to enjoy. So if I resume there has been some eco-compteur to kind of see how many visitors are using the street. It's been done for all the pedestrian streets in Montreal. For just the month of July and August in 2023, we had 1,078,000 passages. And for the whole period of our pedestrian street is 2,021,076 now. So it's very popular. And now you can see on the weekdays and on the weekend how the progression, the people coming to the street, and it's increasing every year. Now you get a view of how many people are going when it's pedestrian, and you can see the drop when the street is reopened. It's a minus 32%, which is very significant. And also there's been a survey to know how the pedestrian street was doing, and people were saying for Wellington that they come more often, they stay longer, and they spend more in the pedestrian street. So that's good indicators of the interest. And then you can get a view, and I invite you to kind of take a look after for all the different pedestrian streets in Montreal to share. So you scooped me, Nia. So voted the coolest street in the world by Time Out magazine. And really the people were very proud of it, and we kind of building on it to kind of keep it going, okay? So as far as cultural activities and animation, I think that is really something to build. For us, in the last 3 years, there's been land paintings by artists. It's the cultural department who invites artists to submit proposals, and then they choose the different projects for the land paintings. Last year, we had also playful artist design on the street marking with ludic activities, such as hopscotch, is that how we say that? And different labyrinth and tic-tac-toe, and part of the street was birds, referring to to our shores and the birds that we can see there. There has also been cultural activities and animation. So 56 cultural activities presented during the pedestrian period, either by the cultural department or by our commercial development society for Wellington. You can see here a picture of indigenous involved in arts. So because Verdun has close relationship with the communities, because we have La Maison Hiver de Saint-Didier, and there's been prehistoric that has been found there. As far as other cultural activities, there has been projections on the Notre-Dame des Sables Douleurs church, and it's very significant because it's a patrimonial church. There are also activities and animation for mediation activities, Cabo project involving citizens and artists, kind of a way to kind of get the people involved for using their recycling bins and making them more colorful. So that was an example of an activity that was very popular. There has also been several special events. You can see the acrobatic cyclists. We also have events linked to circus because we have l'École des Cercles de Verdun. So, and ambulatory shows, especially during the pandemics, but we still have ambulatory shows. Movie projections in the parks just behind the church. So it's very popular, and there's always a lot of people. And there's also the Festival des Marionnettes, which is organized every year. And the fact that we are pedestrian really makes a huge build-up. As you can see on the street that was last year, 2 huge puppets. And they were really coming from one end of the street to the other. And you can see the people leaving if there had been a little bit of rain. So, and in that festival, there are also family theater activities for the all age, and it's very diversified on the whole street. Okay, it's not only at La Place Publique. There's also animations organized by the merchants. Okay, it's a commercial street. There are restaurants. There are all sorts of bars, cafes, and selling some goods. So many. There was a project invitation for the merchants. And we've been doing that. It's the SDC that looks after that every year, okay? And many proposals were submitted. And you can see that picture, it's dancing. It's organized by La Crèmerie Bouboule. And this year, it will be salsa and dancing. It is so popular. The people are enjoying, they're taking over the street, and it's a real happening. Every week, there's plenty of people enjoying. So if you have a chance, you can go take get your shoes for dancing. And there's also a project invitation for the citizens or the community groups, okay? So, for example, there has been artistic painting done in the indoor parking of ETL, which had been really, which improved really massively the installation. And this year, the projects have just been submitted, so we'll know shortly what it's going to be like for the citizens' involvement. But we know that some community group are already involved for plantings, and also for helping to clean and making some special events also. And as far as the design, we always wanted to be playful, reusing the materials and getting plantings, greening the street. So you can see the swings with little kids enjoying the transat chairs, and also the ball game. We have a community who really likes that, and the ball game is also accessible for wheelchairs. So it's been built with that in perspective, and the lighting, that different type of lighting to kind of give an atmosphere on the street during the pedestrian period. And we've redesigned the public place and greening. There are trees, planting, and all the materials is reusing, okay? And we also have a little scene that is used for smaller shows, just beside the public place. And then there's also mobility, because, it's a pedestrian street, but there's not only pedestrians, and I guess it's probably going to be similar for you. We have pedestrians, we have cyclists, we have wheelchairs users. Then they love it because we have ramps every long intersection. There are ramps added, and there's also a tricycle service, which is offered for those who find that 1.3 kilometers a little long when you come make it back and forth. So the service is offered free of charge for the people, and they're going. It's with the SDC that we are having that. And as far as bicycles, we've put some bumps last year to kind of moderate some of the cyclists. And they're allowed at slow speed, and new installation, just spoke about. And for universal access, it's always a concern in Verdun. So we've had the ball game, the ramps in between the streets and the sidewalk, as you can see here, Transat and the swings who have place for universal access. The public place is all accessible. And we also have what we call freshness stops, or halte fraîcheur, which you can see with the guy in black, where the people can just go there. There's Wi-Fi. And that is also accessible by the sidewalk, and there's always a ramp just beside. And there are places for parking when people are coming to the street also. We are working with the community, and the volunteers, and there's the Wellington Commercial Development Society. There's our cooperation with community groups also for person with difficulties. And there's the Main Verdun, which is a community group involved for planting, maintenance. And there's La Maison de l'Environnement and citizens involved for at the end of the season when we're closing, all the flowers, the earth are given back to the citizens. They can there's 3 days where they can go with their car or their roulette to pick up flowers and bring them back home. We started that 2 years ago. You can see here the Road de Bagdun and the marking to kind of show the water. And we have a committee with the general direction where I am, and all the departments are involved. It's not only the business of one or the other. And there's also our Commercial Development Society who is involved in participating in the committee too. And they always have nice ideas. So no, little family and all the people enjoying. So I hope your project will get an inspiration, and I'm sure people have very good ideas. Thank you
Well,
very much.
Thank you very much, Tian. That's really quite inspirational for us to see. And actually, you know, just for the audience, if you go down to the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's reactions where if you like that, you can give it a thumbs up. So why don't you see if people can find a reaction and let us know what you think about that, because that was a pretty remarkable presentation and sign of what could be, well, what is in Montreal and what could be here. And I see a lot of you are getting that reaction going. Great. Deanne, thank you very much. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions for you. What we'll do is we'll hold the questions until the end. It'll be both questions and comments and ideas that people have, but we'll have lots of time for that. So before we do, I'd like to turn the floor over to Bruce Devine from the National Capital Commission. Bruce is the Senior Manager for Programs and Facilities. And as many of you have noticed in this city, there's some really incredible things that the NCC is doing. Chances are that Bruce had a significant part in making those happen. So we're very lucky to have him with us. We're very lucky to have Bruce working for the whole region and creating such fabulous things with his colleagues. And now, Erin, are you going to run Bruce's presentation, or would you like me to?
Can you see? I have the same.
Actually, yes. If you can go to the next slide.
Oh, you can see is it on Google? Apologies.
We can see the whole PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's not in presentation mode.
Bruce, how's this?
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, Bruce, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Neil, for this great presentation. Thank you, Erin. Hello, everyone. Madame Vallée, très belle présentation. Merci beaucoup. Probablement, des gens de mon équipe vont communiquer avec la vôtre pour discuter de certaines idées, peut-être. So as Neil said, I'm involved with NCC public programs, which include some of the ones that he mentioned, the Rideau Canal Gateway, the Capital Pathway, active use, of course, and issuing all kinds of event permit for people wanting to use NCC property for festivals, walkathon, and whatnot. So tonight I'm here to introduce a new program that we're putting on under the umbrella of NCC Bike Days, Weekend Bike Days. Sorry, I won't necessarily reveal the details of it, but at least present the framework and with the perspective in mind of communicating if for those who would like to be involved or get involved and provide some animation, how to do this. That was one of the perspective I was asked to talk about. So the summer zone the Estival in French, is will run from July 1st to September 2nd on Queen Elizabeth Drive from Somerset Street to Catherine Street. So what that'll do, why Catherine instead of Pretoria? This is a 24/7 closure from Monday to Sunday, that 1 kilometer stretch. So during the week, the weekdays, at least people arriving from Pretoria or Arthurn wanting to go to St. Catherine, to Catherine Street, they will be able to use Queen Elizabeth Drive and make that turn, and off they go on Catherine. But for the weekends, we are extending these weekend bike days as you've been going through since mid-May, right up to Fifth Avenue from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Until Thanksgiving weekend. So the idea here is to animate various parts of that 1 kilometer and encourage the public to get involved and have some engagement with others, discovering activities, topics, or just have fun. We'll run this from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. We're mindful that we don't want to run too late in the evening, but it's at least 13 hours of a program. So that may be quite a lot. Next slide, please. So this is just to show you how we're splitting this. If you look at the zone on both ends, A and G, this is our transition zone. So if keeping in mind that if you're on the weekends, which is close to Fifth Avenue, as you get closer to this section, well, you will be in transition zone and you realize that you're somewhere else and you need to slow down or go elsewhere. You won't be able to zip through very quickly. We've split this artery in three, and this sort of the thematical approach: a play zone, nature zone, and cultural zone, which some of the activities could be or thematic: health and wellness, arts and culture, and entertainment. A lot like I noticed what Madame Vallée has shown, but it will be different activities, mind you, but a bit structured like what we just saw. Next slide, please. So the eligibility, who can submit this? We'll have a NCC Summer Zone application form, which will be on our website. It's not there yet, but that's what you need to look out for. You identify, so that form will be simple. I think it holds on one page. You identify the zone and you propose your venue. You go through the description, so we can evaluate how feasible it is, where it would be best suited, and if there's place in the schedule. Everything's free. We're not charging for anyone to be there. We want to be as open as possible. So some of the animation responsibilities, people's responsibilities, you have to be able to manage what you're proposing, your supervise crowd management if need be, and that sort of thing. Has to be bilingual if you have any signage. If you're several people, at least one of them must be bilingual to entertain the Francophone community. if it applies, well, the public health directives will have to be applied, and we'll guide people through those. We'll evaluate the site capacity. So you imagine a zone of many meters. We'll split that in if I may say, stalls. So try to fit people in there. What I forgot to mention, the 1 kilometer strip, all the animation will be on the west side, on the housing side. There are several factors that's play into this. The service provider or the animator that comes with its equipment need to get close to Queen Elizabeth, park his vehicle if he has one, and disembark the equipment and walk to the site. So the side streets will help reaching the area where the animation takes place. So Queen Elizabeth Drive is, imagine this, is 9 meters wide. So on the west side, 5 meters width, this is where the animation takes place. And the other 4 is where the active mode happens. Those wants to walk, cycle, jog, it's right there. And every at a certain distance, for those that are biking and it's too cumbersome, or they'll have either to walk their bike or up on the NCC's pathway and the way they go to do their thing. So that's how physically it is organized. It's a first come, first serve, space availability. So we'll review all of this with respect to the calendar that we have developed, and look at the days, the time, type of zone. We'd like to know which category the person is submitting for. And so we'll evaluate the possibility, expected attendance, and etc. So that's how we view this. So once you've got your form complete, you see in yellow the email address. This is where it's to be sent. And I just listed very quickly what the form is all about. It's just a repeat of what I just said. And we need at least 5-7 days, working days to look at this and turn things around. So we're still working at preparing our detailed program. We still have to go some admin process internally, and soon, of course, soon we'll be communicating to the public the details of this program. That's it.
Bruce, thank you so much. That is, I have to say, it's fabulous to hear. I think everyone on this call cares deeply about the Queen Elizabeth Driveway, recognizes its potential as a place for people. And what I'm hearing is that the NCC is making a big section of it, and half the road, I think half will be reserved for the active transportation, but making space for people like us to come forward with our ideas and actually put them into and to implement them. So that's really exciting. So happy to hear this.
Thank you for all of this, Neil. If I may, there's one thing, I just saw one question and I forgot to mention it. There's no deadline to submit a form. This is 60 days long, and we will not come out with a 60-day program. So as we go along, we'll be fulfilling the weeks. So we're probably going to be several weeks ahead and fulfill the calendar.
Great.
Sorry.
Great. Okay, no, that's really helpful. And Kim, to answer your question that's in the chat, this is the first anyone's hearing about this. So I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of availability on the calendar right now, but I suspect it'll fill up pretty quickly. I'd like to turn the floor over now to our final speaker before Aaron Maher. Aaron is the co-founder of Parkways for People and is a relentless advocate for both better cities and for a sustainable future for our kids. Aaron is going to present a few of the ideas that we have heard over the years and that community members have shared with us about how we could go about animating the QED. So Aaron, let's turn it over to you. And then of course, just to remind everyone, after Aaron's run through of some of the ideas we've heard, we want to hear from you, and both the things that you think you'd love to see, but also some of the things that you would love to be a part of helping activate. So Aaron, over to you.
Thanks so much. So I have the privilege of running through a bunch of ideas that we've heard over the years. So, and I'm going to do this pretty quickly. So picture tells 1,000 words, as you can see. And as Deanne sort of showed in her presentation, color makes such a huge difference, and we can get the community involved without a lot of overhead, right? They could just decorate QED, make it a vibrant place, make it a place for them. It's for the whole family. We could do this together. Street food by bike. I am curious. That was one thing, Bruce. I was wondering about how food and kind of that sort of thing would be handled with regard to the plan. So we'll find out later. I'm sure someone asked the question. Drum circle, incorporating Indigenous elements to the programming would be so powerful. Watching, witnessing, and participating would really get the community involved and be quite meaningful. We just did this on 2 weekends ago, e-cargo bike demonstrations. Invite the community to bring their bikes, do all the work themselves, talk about why they love cargos and why they're the kind of wave of the future. Impromptu concerts, I don't know where these two came from, Neil, but they're having a great time. But walking through with music, walking by, it's just a great way to kind of enjoy maybe a Sunday morning stroll with a coffee, bring the family, adds life to the space. Events for kids. I mean, we've seen a lot of kidical masses along the QED, which are so beautiful, so inspiring to see. Safe spaces for kids. We could do bike rodeos. We could do like kind of like a little loop for kids where they wouldn't have to go down the full length, but maybe they could just stick within a little corner. And parents watching alongside. I'm a parent too, so that would appeal to me quite a bit. Silent discos, we've heard about this quite a bit just in our various discussions. Doesn't have to be loud. They have been implemented elsewhere and they look super fun. Public art jam, bring your easel, bring your sketchbook, have a group art activity where everyone's invited to sort of share their art with others or participate in a community painting of some kind. Bike repair clinics. People often are not sure what to do with their bikes. I don't know everything. I'm sure there's lots of people that would love to find out a bit more about how to repair and maintain their bike. Deanne had mentioned this, play zones, like just simple paintings on the ground that will encourage people to play in the space and kind of either among friends or family, children. Free fitness classes. You could very easily see this happening in the morning. We see this in parks sometimes too. Bring it on down to the driveway. So those are some things that we could see with just pretty much somebody bringing their own stuff, tomorrow. It could be done pretty instantly, all community leveraged. But with a little bit of infrastructure, and we'll see a little bit, we could do even more. So here's some ideas that we've heard that require a little bit more physical infrastructure. So these lovely skateway shelters, we always wonder, could they be used on the driveway itself to provide shelter, somewhere to sit, bathrooms, more bike parking, hammocks. I don't know what genius person came up with this idea, but wouldn't that be amazing to have a little sleep, a little siesta on Queen Elizabeth driveway? Food trucks, picnic tables, you could see how that would be an immediate success. We have splash pad, or some sort of ridiculous water feature would also be quite amusing. I don't know where this is, but if anyone knows, does anyone know?
That's in Bristol, England.
Bristol, England. There you go. Bristol, England can do it. So can we. Break dancing pad. You can see that being super vibrant, interesting. Street piano. These are like at airports, right? I feel like we've seen them in other parks around the world. People love to sort of just find out what talent their neighbors have. Board game tables. This has been mentioned before. Movies, ping pong. And a stage, please, right? That would just go a long way at making it kind of official that this is like an actual performance that's sort of endorsed. So these are just some of the ideas that we have heard, really simple. Some of you may have ideas kind of cooking in the back that sort of relate to some of these themes. We'd love to hear those say, if it's similar, go for it. This is sort of like a little warm up for the community to kind of feel free to share whatever it is that you're thinking of, the big, the small. Obviously, we'd love to hear like the community-based ideas most of all, but don't be shy in as we move on to the next part of the discussion here in sharing what have you got on your mind for Queen Elizabeth Driveway?
Great, thanks, Erin. And why don't we stop sharing? Great. So listen, we've had like an inspirational presentation from Montreal. We've had the NCC share with us what the framework is for how the community can get involved. We've had some examples that people have communicated to us previously about what could be. So what we'd like to do now is open up the floor to everyone here. So there's a lot of comments in the chat, but we'd like people to put up your hand, open up your mic and tell us about them. And I see Pierre, you're first up, but just we'll go with Pierre and then we'll go to Kim. So let's get started. And I just encourage people, either if you have ideas and suggestions, or if you have questions for any of our previous speakers. The floor is wide open. So over to you, Pierre.
Thank you very much, Neil. I'd like to thank both the presenters. It was really fascinating and great to see what's being done in Verdun and what Erin is proposing for some of the ideas that she had. I have two basic questions, though, that I perhaps should be directed to the NCC spokesperson. We live on the driveway, and we love the Queen Elizabeth Driveway. But I'm wondering why the NCC chose Somerset to Pretoria, where it's residential houses and apartment buildings along the length of it. The strip between the driveway and the canal is relatively narrow. There's a bike path and there's a walking path and not much else, as opposed to, say, Fifth Avenue to Bank Street, where there's ample space on the Lansdowne Park side for all sorts of activities and booths and so on, where there's access for the people from Old Ottawa East to come over on the Flora MacDonald Bridge, or for the people from Ottawa South, Old Ottawa South, to come over from the Bank Street Bridge. So to get a greater participation, it would seem that the NCC would have chosen Fifth Avenue to Bank Street. The
answer might be in the chat. Listen, we've got.
Let me consider. I'm not sure what consultation the NCC has done with the city of Ottawa, but certainly the mayor has expressed reservations about Queen Elizabeth Driveway closure, or with the residents and the commuters. For those of us who live next to us, it's an important access way to our homes and to our shopping, particularly for seniors like we are. There are thousands of cars that are up and down commuting, and very important that they commute, especially with Bank Street locked down to one lane at Billings Bridge. So what kind of consultation did the NCC?
Pierre, I'm going to cut you off there, because we're not here to talk about past decisions. I mean, a decision has been made for 2024. There's been discussions between the city and the NCC as to what the closure would be. It's different than it was last year, but I think we know the decision is that the QED up to Fifth Avenue will be open on weekends to active transportation, and then there'll be an area north of Pretoria that is an area that is going to be closed 24/7 to cars, and that's a decision that's being made. So we're not here to relitigate that decision. We're here to talk about what can happen with that space. So sorry, Pierre, I'm going to have to cut you off and let other people, if you want to come back to it, we'll let other people come in first. But again, we're not here to to go over what's been discussed before. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect questions for the NCC and for Deanne from Verdun. So why don't we have a few more speakers jump in, and then we'll ask Bruce and Deanne to come in and answer those. So Kim, over to you.
Hi, everybody. So I'll go real quick. My suggestions are related to wellness and to art. So basically, one, we've all seen the success that the full moon yoga have in Lansdowne, like huge success. And you know what I want to take about this is that they set up a pop-up stage. Everybody knows more or less what it is, and there's a big promo. Everybody knows there's a fixed date. So that's one thing. And then the art thing is like there's experience in Buenos Aires where there's these parks where they set up these tiny little easels and say they're like 12. And then there's like big easels. So there's people kind of you know, kind of managing kids' art while adults can also do arts, etc. So basically it's one to have an area where there's a wellness area, where there's a little stage place for mats or whatever. And then you have like a bunch of people that can basically say, well, you know, I'm going to do yoga and meditation for 3 days, and then somebody else might, but that's the wellness area. So I'm just walking around randomly. I know that there's a wellness thing at 7 in the morning or whatever, and then I just go there and there's something happening. The same with art. And I think that it's interesting also if we have a kids acknowledgement and an adults acknowledgement, because you know, how great would it be if somebody, you know, would want to do those things. Personally, I have enough resources or people that would be interested in the yoga and meditation. I believe that there's a need for that. It's a perfect place to do this. The same with art. What I do have is my concerns are how people are going to find out about this. Because in Ottawa, as different from other places, you find out about the stuff that happened after, right? If you're as I live very close to Lansdowne, I go there in my bike and then I find out what's happening there. But I don't believe that this city has a good way of people advertising. You know, when I go to the jazz festival in Montreal, there's like a billboard, and every single day there's a schedule of what's going to happen. And I don't find that anywhere here. So what I'm properly saying is that suppose that we have an activity of mindfulness and yoga with I don't know, Eric, you know, so make it be, let's say 3 days in a row or 2 days, because if I missed it on the one Thursday, well, I'll know that the next Thursday at 7 in the morning, there's a meditation with Eric. So give people a chance in hell to be able to participate after the fact. And finally, I wanted to mention again that one thing is to organize the activity, but the other one is to get people, one, aware, second, encourage, and then get to go there. So it's not build it and they will come. So I think that that's a big part of it. So I want to know when I go on my stroll on Monday, that on Thursday, there's going to be, you know, meditation with Aaron and, you know, like art with kids and adults at noon or whatever. So I think that that's what I would like to contribute. But definitely, I think that there should be sort of like a little wellness mini full moon yoga type of thingy happening, because I think it would be a great, a fabulous, and people would be super interested.
Great, thank you very much, Kim. I'm going to turn to Marco and then to Tone, and then I'm going to ask the NCC to come in. There are some address this issue of promotion, but also, Bruce, if you have the chance to look in the chat, there's a few questions that have just come up about some of the logistical issues like insurance and other things like that. So we'll have 2 speakers, and then if I could get you to just respond to some of the questions that have come up, that would be great. So over to you, Marco. And if you can turn your camera on, there we go.
Yep. Hello. I just wanted to say thank you to all the presenters. It was very nice hearing all the wonderful things, especially that are happening in Montreal right now. And I think it really highlights the idea that like you know, you need to make a place a destination worth going to, not just like closing it down to cars, but actually making people want to go and visit the area. And it's clear that Montreal has done a lot of work for making their streets a destination. One question I had for Montreal was, did you guys ever at the like in the first couple of years when you started closing down the street, did you receive a lot of pushback from public saying that, like, you know, this is a street that we want to keep open for cars because this is an important street for cars to pass through? Or, and if you did receive any of that, was there any, I guess, like easy ways that you guys found of handling those kinds of concerns that were popped up from the public?
Thanks, Marco. Deanne, we'll ask you that question in a minute or two, but if you can just think about any sort of pushback that you've had in any opposition. So Tone, over to you.
Hi there, thanks for having me. I guess you asked initially for thoughts on Wellington, on Queen Elizabeth. And I guess what's always been in my mind is that not necessarily all of Queen Elizabeth, but certainly large portions of it, perhaps from Laurier to Fifth, could be converted into a Woonerf, which is a Dutch-style street, low traffic, speed of no more than 10 kilometers an hour, where pedestrians and cyclists are given the priority. And that kind of thing helps ensure that people still have access to their home or their driveway, fire trucks and so forth, but it becomes a focus on active transportation. And then in the winter months, that Queen Elizabeth Drive and Park be considered as part of a linear urban national park and be an expanded space for the National Capital Commission to host winterlude festivals. There could be like skating on the street. There could be, skating pathways, public art, snow sculptures, ice sculptures, depending on how the season goes. If it's good for skating, then great, you go in the canal. And if it's not good skating weather, then you have the skating on the path, skis, walking trails, and so on, and really turn the space into a continuum of active, wonderful public green space as a real focus on places for people that could really animate our city and put our city at the leading forefront of fantastic urban spaces.
Yeah, thanks, Tone. That's a great suggestion. And if I can just build on that, I think that what we're talking about tonight in terms of how we animate QED north of Pretoria is the first step to show people what that could look like. I think part of the challenge that we've had in the city is that there's a number of voices that don't necessarily imagine what a better future could look like. And I think here's an opportunity for us to show what it could be and then move towards a more comprehensive solution from one end to the other of the QED. So I fully support the ideas that you're saying. Could I turn to Bruce, please, and just to respond to those questions that came up?
Yes, thank you, Neil. So to respond to the last gentleman comments, a bit in the way that you answer, Neil. Got to view this as a baby steps, possibly, and there's some discussion, like the gentleman just said. Maybe it's a look to the future, how this is a possibility, how we can evolve. So we're starting small, and let's see what kind of a success we have, and maybe for several years, possibly we will build on this to make it better, and then possibly develop it even more. Insurance is, for everybody listening, Neil had asked that question at our early discussions. I don't have a full answer just yet. There's still a few people we need to speak with internally. But the stand that I wish to take is for individuals that will be involved, that they're not under a official association where it's more structure and possibly the association has its insurance and so forth. I'd like to provide that peace of mind to people. So the exact mechanism, I still have some people working on this and to confirm exactly how this will happen. So I'm sorry, we couldn't get that answer for tonight. Okay. Kim had all kinds of nice suggestions. So normally the NCC, will use heavily its website. We've got a full team of social media that is dynamic and keep things going. The billboard, the on-street billboard, is a nice idea. We haven't planned for that, but I took notes. So typically that's how we do. We see things. I'm told by the internal experts that these mechanisms that we have are heavily used. There's a lot of traffic on it. You can have access to it by phone or at your computer. For the moment, that's how it will be communicated, and with regular updates for sure.
Right. Thanks, Bruce.
Did I miss anything, Neil? I'm okay.
I don't think so. Unless if anyone has any further questions for Bruce on some of these technical issues, road barriers. I presume that we're just going to close the road the way it is closed right now on bike weekends, or I guess that's a good question. Are you planning temporary barriers or permanent barriers?
Permanent barriers or gates. The day that the program will be fixed and no more changes and so forth, we may get something like that involved. But for this year, the side streets will have bollards, the flex posts, but the wide one, they will be affixed on all side streets with a closed street signage. We've discussed this with the city, and that's what they're proposing. So that will be on every side streets, and at both ends, it will be a hard closure with, I believe we'll still go with the barricades, so I'm told.
Okay, we have a few more questions for Bruce, but let's actually turn to Deanne first. Deanne, maybe you can tell us about your experience in terms of some of the opposition that you had, some of the feedback from the neighbors or the businesses or the local community.
Well, mostly the citizens were pretty glad with the pedestrian street. We've had a petition asking us to make it all year long, okay, with 3,000 signatures. And we will be doing consultation for that this fall, okay? So it's very popular. Mostly this year, because we have some street closures due to work. Sometimes we've had 2 complaints this week for that, okay? But at the very beginning, the merchants themselves were kind of very worried about the pedestrian street. And what we've done is we hired with the consultant, we had focus group to discuss and get solutions. And that way we increase some parking space on the transversal streets, for example, to kind of give room for the people who had lost their parking on the Wellington Street. We've added Big C, okay, also to get more space, and a lot of the bicycling rack to encourage the people to come and use their bikes. But really, for the citizens, they really seem to enjoy and see more positive than negative. For the merchants, it varies, because those who are selling goods and who have some people coming from the region, it's more difficult. So we've done some arrangements for parking, but basically we've been through that, and the borough receives the complaints at the phone 311, and the SDC has had some, but the only ones that were persisting were about the bikes going too fast and you're enjoying the street, and now you're concerned, because that's why we've put some measures to kind of slow them down. Okay, so basically.
All right, thank you. Is it Marianne? I think you've been waiting very patiently. Over to you.
Thank you. I have just a couple of questions. I'm always concerned about safety, and my husband and I, we ride e-bikes and we ride them very cautiously. There are people who don't, and if there are children that are in a group drawing on the pavement, etc., maybe those areas could be sectioned off or something, because that would be very traumatizing for a little one to be hit even by a bicycle other than a senior. The other thing is, this is encouraging people outside of our community. We're in the Glebe, we're on the canal, and just south of Pretoria. So for us, this is encouraging people from Ottawa or outside of Ottawa to enjoy the beautiful lifestyle we have here. However, with that comes the question of parking. In some places, they have buildings allocated for that. Even here down the road at Lansdowne Stadium, I can see from our window, the traffic is phenomenal. And I'm wondering, are you going to section off perhaps something up by City Hall and bus them in, which has happened before? If some of the embassies are bringing in a lot of people to their event, they'll have bus stations to pick people up and bring them in. Those are the kinds of things that are front of mind for me, because also if anything happens, the liability for the NCC or for the city could be catastrophic.
Yeah, and Marion, can I ask, is not City Hall, if parking at City Hall not free on weekends, and there are not about 1,000 parking spots there?
Well, the problem is the people will probably park at some place like Loblaws or something down the street from a restaurant like Al's Steakhouse or something in that area, because they'll think perhaps that going all the way through up to City Hall is maybe not the easiest thing to do. Do you know what I'm saying? Like maybe you can segregate one of the schools that are located in that area as parking for weekends or something like that.
Okay, well, maybe the suggestion then is for the NCC to provide some guidance on parking in any of its promotional material.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, great. Michael, over to you. Michael, we've lost you.
I have a suggestion for the parking, because we've had that problem because, example, we had the collecting for garbage, recuperation and every recycling all on the same days. And during the pedestrian street, it was a problem because then the people could not go park on the street. So we had to reschedule the routes and the times where the people were not allowed to park on the streets, because it was really a problem. But that was when we started the first year, and then after that we adjusted, so sometimes the solutions are, we also have a big parking, but it's in the center of the street, so that is useful. So if you have something like that.
Great, thanks, Jen. Michael?
Hello again. I'll try again.
Okay, we got
Hear me this time?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say I won't relitigate the decision about which parts are closed, apart from to say I'm disappointed that the section between Pretoria South is only going to be closed on weekends, because the last couple of summers I was using that as my safe and direct route to get to the grocery store at Loblaws. But I guess the next point I'll make is one thing that I've observed is that the signage that's used along O'Connor, this is a point for the NCC, that says, road closed, local traffic only. What it doesn't also say is no access to QED. And so the other weekend, I actually went and just printed out sheets and put an additional sign on one of those signs that said no access to QED. And all of the people who would come driving down the street and then turn around in frustration because they can't get to QED evaporated. So for the NCC, I would say, can we have an additional sign on those signs that just says no access to QED, because I think that would make a big difference for people. We live on that last block before QED on one of the avenues in the Glebe. And so, you know, I think that would make a big difference for people's sort of quality of life of not, you'll probably still have people looking for parking, especially if there's activities, but just the people who, after they've been at something Lansdowne and they're trying to get to QED, and then they turn down the streets looking for an access. But, so that's one point. And I guess the only other point I'll add in terms of an activity would perhaps be, in addition to the bicycle repair tent that you often see at the Sunday bike days, might be somebody doing registrations for Garage 529 for registering people's bikes in case that they're going to get stolen.
Yeah, great suggestion. I'm sure, you know, we should reach out to the police and let them know that there'll be a lot of interested customers coming by at that time. Bruce, could I come back to you with a couple of questions that have been put in the chat that I think are worth talking about? So number one is, what is your thoughts on safety? You know, like say, you know, the example of kids jogging on the road and then cyclists going past. Will there be physical barriers? Will there maybe even be signs to tell cyclists to slow down because they're entering into, you know, a different zone? So that's one question. Second question is, what is your thoughts on people using the space for commercial use? Say, for instance, selling food and beverages. And then the third question is there any need to involve the city in any approvals around some of the ideas that are being used? Any of the activities?
Thank you, Neil. Food and beverages. You're right. I didn't mention that. We are thinking of that. We'll have several ideas as to where it should be located. So there will be some. I'm working with our real estate folks looking after that. So I have as yet waiting for their suggestions and how to go about this. So there'll be some. Safety. There will be staff on both ends. There will be a transition zone. They're there to alert people. This is not a normal passing through. It is a mixing zone. People have to really slow down. I'm hoping it will be so busy that you can't zigzag at 20 kilometers and more. You really have to go around 10. Even possibly watch your bike or use the pathway. But we are cognizant about that. Safety for us is we're always looking out for it. I'm not discarding the fact that maybe for some activities we'll put some sort of a barrier to make sure that it's being kept enclosed, but it's not all activities that requires that. So we'll do that as we go along with respect to the animations. For city approval, well, we don't need city approval for doing some programs on Queen Elizabeth Drive, but as a important stakeholder, though, we do communicate regularly with the city, with bylaw, with circulation department, waste disposals, emergencies, public health, and so forth. So with respect to foods and that sort of thing, we definitely want the city to be involved and for these folks to follow city bylaw. So I'm not sure if I'm answering it, but we are working in close proximity with the city.
Terrific. We invite others to jump in with any of the ideas or comments or thoughts. I see there's a lot going on in the chat, so feel free to open up your mic and speak. In the meantime, I have a question for Deanne about the Montreal experience. And I wonder if you can tell us what, you know, you showed us a whole range of the different activities that have taken place, and there's a lot that's happening, and it all looks great. And it looks like such an improvement from what, you know, what we would, you know, what we have come to expect on our city streets. But can I ask, what are some of the events that really surprised you that they were so popular or so successful? What are some of the, the very specific ideas that you think that we should look at very closely?
Well, some of the ideas that were brought up, I took note, but I would say, for example, well, the acrobatic kind of stuff was very popular. The Festival des Marionnettes is, it started like a very small event, and then it went bigger and bigger. So that was a very good idea. There's also been events, with a parade with the people on their wheelchairs,
Oh, yeah, really, wheelchair
And
parade?
we've had the Tour de l'Île the day before we started the pedestrian street, so. But there has been kind of, the dancing, that also started as a small event, and then the people are coming from everywhere. It's not only people from Verdun, and we also have dance on the riverbanks. So that is always very popular. I heard someone talking about yoga. We have a parking with several levels. And at the top level, you have a nice view on the city and downtown Montreal. And they were organizing events like yoga, aerobic dancing, storytelling. That was very cozy, and we do these kind of things. And there's a park behind the church, and it's been used for storytelling, and also for you were talking about events with foods, when there's the sugar cabin, and it's a huge event in March, and the people it's the SDC who's organizing it, but it is very popular. So there are plenty of ideas. The mariachi, for example, that was very popular. They come every summer because the people, they like that. And there's also as far as special events, there's there has been activities with jazz, and there's a studio for the kids to learn the music, and they always make a special event during the pedestrian street at the public place where the kids, they kind of show what they've learned in their day camp, specialize in music. So there are all sorts of things, and it changes every year. So this year, I don't know if we're gonna have a new happening, but and there's also with the circus and l'école de cirque, because they do very nice stuff on the presbytère, and go up on the building, and it's very impressive. So you go, wow. So,
That's
but
great.
there are many. The citizens are bringing the chalk. I saw when you spoke about the chalk, it's been asked this year, to kind of make a chalk festival where everybody could, do something on the sidewalks or on the streets. So it's kind of, we're working on it. But there's always the city, the borough, and there's always the SDC who's also involved, and they are very creative. So there's a ruelle, how do you say that? A small street, which is going in a cul-de-sac in a dead end. And every year, the SDC transform that place for something. The first year they had the surfers illustration, then the people go there to get post a photo, and then they post their photos. So you kind of build up on the people enjoying, So, and this year they're coming with something new. Last year, there was a huge gorilla installed in that space with, the jungle type of thing. And the people could just go there and get the photos and show them. That was very original, but every year they come with something very original.
Oh, fantastic. Tone. And you're on mute.
Sorry. I guess one of the things that's always on my mind, and I've written a lot about this, is the urgent need to have public washrooms and accessible public washrooms in our city. The public washroom that's at Patterson Creek is a federally recognized heritage building. There's no reason today, other than political will, why we couldn't hold a design competition this summer. The NCC could host it, to host a design competition this summer for 4 or 5 beautiful, accessible public washrooms. Queen Elizabeth Drive has a serviced space. There's services, public, sanitary services, water services nearby, and locate, 4 or 5 beautiful public washrooms. Run the design competition this summer, construct them in the spring, and have them open by next summer. And we could have accessible public washrooms available year-round for the public to use, have access to the canals, parks, walkways, skating, skiing, and meet an urgent public health need, and provide dignity to people, and meet accessibility needs, and create tomorrow's heritage today.
Great, thanks, John. Other people like to jump in right now? I want to make one comment, or maybe a question to Bruce around. There's been a lot in the chat. There's been a lot of questions or comments about using the water or using the canal, and I appreciate that's under Parks Canada jurisdiction. So I wonder if you can speak to that at all, Bruce. I mean, is this in scope, or is it just too complicated for this year?
I don't believe it will be feasible for this year. You're right. This is Parks Canada jurisdictions. It's not NCC. Their priority is the boat season, which I understand it's very busy. But I've seen pictures, just like the River House, this sort of swimming pool that we've created over there. I saw some examples in the canal. So I know Parks Canada wants to animate the canal more and more. They've made provisions for that, but as for people to swim in it, I can't speak to that with respect to the water quality. I know there's a lot of algae, these algae. I'm not sure if that's the right word. Pardon me?
Yes, algae.
Algae, thank you. And I know that they try to manage this. They take them out, but it keeps growing and growing. It's definitely a question for Parks Canada. Yes.
Great, thanks. David.
Yes, let's a few statistics. According to Statistics Canada and the City of Ottawa, approximately 5 to 6% of this population are cyclists. All I'm hearing is what we're going to do for cyclists. Some 20% or greater of the City of Ottawa are disabled. And essentially what I'm hearing now is you putting up barriers to the disabled getting there. Do any one of you want to come and push a wheelchair from City Hall down to the park? I heard somebody was saying quite proudly that we're putting up bullies on the side streets. So where is that family with the autistic child going to park so that they can spend an afternoon down there? As far as I can see, everything you people are talking about so far is pretty damn selfish. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for your comment. Anyone else like to jump in? If there's no other comments, why don't we, if anyone would like to speak, please use the raise your hand. Okay, I think Pierre let me just see. You have to unmute yourself, I think. If you can go ahead. Demons. Now you have to unmute yourself.
Is Teresa Demons.
There you go.
Just some reaction is not a selfish approach, but in this neighborhood, people who live there are people seniors. We don't have any place, one single place that is a commercial store. All our buildings, all our residents, all our private residentials, nothing else. When people come to the area to skate, to bike on the neighborhood, always they are welcome. There are many activities they take place, and they are always welcome. The thing is, you don't have local resources to put forward the program that you have in Quebec or in Montreal. We don't have stores. We don't have repair shops for bikes or any other activity. Or it's all residential. All the parking is private on the buildings of the people who live there. Then they pay other rent or they pay their taxes on their properties. So you have a challenge how to convert a residential area into a commercial entertainment area without the participation of people, without the participation of the residents. You could have a lot of money, a lot of a small interest of your group, as you have indicated at the beginning. But if you don't have the majority of the people who live there, be sure you will fail. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Deanne, could I ask a question of you? Then I'm going to let Marco come in. And Deanne, we had a question about accessibility and how there's some people, as one of our previous speakers said, closing a road is very selfish and doesn't accommodate people with disabilities. How have you dealt with that in your situation? Has it an issue that's come up for you? And I'm wondering how you've dealt with that.
We've had a situation where a person was getting adapted transport, and we've done special arrangements for that lady who was in the middle of a tronçon, so she really needed to be escorted. And we've made arrangement with the STM especially for that person. In the other cases, we offer taxi services for the people who find it too far to kind of go from their residence to 4 or 5 blocks away. So we offer a taxi service. We've made a special arrangement, especially for the people with limitations, and so that they can call that taxi and they bring them to their point of transport, because we had the buses line on the Wellington and they're kind of 1 block away. So to kind of accommodate, we've made arrangement. We've put that in service last year, and we'll make it, for the whole season this year. So the people, they can call and just get a taxi. And, it seemed to work pretty well. We've had good comments.
Yeah.
And we offer the tuk-tuk. We expanded the period for the tricycle to get the people, from one place. At the beginning, the SDC was hiring a company to do that, and they had problem that they were not showing up, and then the people were not happy. And last year, the SDC hired their own staff and get this bicycle calls and operate them directly to improve the service and to make sure they can cover a larger period. So it's, but you know, we have accessibility because part of the population of Verdun is elderly, so and they like having something nearby somehow. That's something that they appreciate. So, but there are some people, some of the pedestrian streets in Montreal, there has been some who didn't renew the experience of pedestrian street, but most of the streets decided to go on with that and to renew year after year. Verdun is kind of really active for that because the people are really enjoying, but you know, we have to find solutions when a problem arises, and we've been working with everybody. That's why we have a committee with urbanism for the terraces and for the permits, the food. The only one who can have food are the businesses on the street, except when they have sidewalk sales. That's the only, so we've managed to change our regulations to kind of accommodate, but we also have in the rules we've changed for terraces, for example, to make sure that the people would get access to the terrace. Because if you're in a wheelchair, you need more room. So last year we changed the rules, and we have an inspector to kind of make sure that the people respect the changes we've done. So, but you know, we see families with grandparents, the kids, the little kids, and you know, they seem to have fun. You know, if I walk on the street very often, and the people are enjoying mostly. But some merchants are more affected, and we're trying to find ways to kind of make it easier for them.
Okay. We're coming up to 8:30, so I'm gonna have Marco speak, and then I'm gonna ask Bruce if he wants to jump in and just respond to any of the last comments. He's welcome to, and then we'll just wrap up. So Marco, over to you.
Hello. I just wanted to make a comment on the previous comment about accessibility for disabled people, or sorry, people with disabilities. I think one thing to keep in mind, though, is that closing a street to cars is ultimately probably one of the best things you could do for people with disabilities. You're giving them a space that they previously could not have enjoyed comfortably because, you know, it's not a safe space for them. And so while I appreciate that there's difficulties with them getting to the area, currently as it is right now, without the street being closed at all, they don't even have an area to go to and enjoy. And a lot of the streets that they have throughout the rest of the city, they're too close to the curb is too close to the street, and then you have cars whizzing past them at uncomfortable speeds. They can't cross the streets very easily because cars are never looking out for them. So having a space like this is, if anything, they're probably one of the people that are benefiting the most from something like this. And I think it would be great to make sure that we're having them have accessible options to get to the QED. So things like better public transit, or having accessible parking spots that are near the QED. But I mean, again, this is some of the best things that you can be doing for people with disabilities, is giving them spaces where they can enjoy themselves comfortably and safely without the need to be worried about something as dangerous as a car whizzing past them at 60 or 70 kilometers an hour.
Thank you, Marco. So Bruce, if there's any last comments that you'd like to make?
This is interesting. I have some of my colleagues on the call. I know we are all taking good notes. We'll share them amongst ourselves tomorrow. No, I thank everybody for their openness and propositions, and thank you for the other presenters. This was a great evening. Thanks, Neil, for putting that together.
Thanks very much, Bruce. And I think on behalf of all of us, we want to say thank you to you and to Deanne for coming and joining us. Last word, Aaron, could you just throw up the last slide? And if you could just go forward one. We've actually just been taking notes ourselves, and these are some of the ideas that that we heard. You know, there's on the left-hand side, we've got requests to the NCC of some of the facilities and services that would make this much more effective. And then on the right-hand side, We've got a list of some of the ideas that we've heard, some of the ones that are fairly straightforward, and some that are a little more challenging. Aaron, if you can go to the next slide. This is the rest of the list that we heard. If you had made a suggestion and you didn't see it on that list, please send it to us. If you can find us, info@parkwaysforpeople.ca, and we'd be glad to include that on the list. We'll be of course, sharing this with Bruce and his colleagues and putting this up on social media. But Aaron, you can close the share screen. So listen, I'm just going to close it here, and I want to say thank you very much to everyone for attending. It's been a great discussion. We really appreciate all the engagement, all the involvement. I want to say a big thanks to Deanne for telling us about the Montreal experience, and I highly encourage everyone to do what I did 2 weeks ago, which is go down to Montreal for a weekend and see Wellington Street all for yourself, because it really is an amazing place. And my kids are already asking when we're going to go back and see it again. So it really is a fantastic experience. I want to thank Bruce and his colleagues for being here and sharing with us the framework for how the community can get involved. There's a lot of people on this call that look at a roadway like the Queen Elizabeth Driveway and see this as having much more potential than just what it is right now. And this is our opportunity to show the rest of the city just exactly what it could be. I think there's people that until they see what it can be, just don't believe that we can really have the sort of have the enjoyment and the places for people that we see elsewhere in the world. So on that note, let me just say thank you, everyone. Have a great evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you all out on the QED. All the best then. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Hope to see you in Wellington.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.